Did you know that these war criminals escaped to Argentina with stolen gold and priceless art? What if we told you they used secret escape routes called ratlines with fake passports and even help from powerful allies? This is the incredible story of how Nazi war criminals evaded justice and disappeared. When the Third Reich fell in 1945, it left behind a world shattered by destruction. Cities lay in ruins, millions of lives had been lost, and the horrifying scale of Nazi atrocities was just beginning to surface. As Allied forces closed in, the top Nazi officials knew their days were numbered. Capture meant facing the Nuremberg trials, where their crimes would be exposed to the world, and execution seemed almost inevitable. For many, the thought of being held accountable was unbearable. Some, like Adolf Hitler, Heinrich Himmler, and Joseph Goebbels, chose suicide to avoid justice, but others had a different plan: escape. With their regime crumbling and the Allies advancing rapidly, these men scrambled to stay ahead. Even amid the chaos, the Nazis had something that gave them a fighting chance: years of stolen wealth and powerful connections. For them, escape wasn't just a desperate wish, it was a carefully crafted strategy. When it comes to Nazi escapes, one country stands out: Argentina. For many fleeing war criminals, it became the ultimate safe haven, far across the Atlantic. But why Argentina? To answer that, we need to rewind decades before the war even began. Argentina had deep ties to Germany. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, waves of German immigrants settled there, creating tight-knit communities that held onto their language, traditions, and connections to their homeland. By the time World War II broke out, these communities acted as cultural bridges, making Argentina a natural destination for fleeing Germans. But it wasn't just shared heritage that drew them. Argentina's president, Juan Domingo Perón, played a pivotal role. Perón was deeply influenced by European fascism. During the war, he had been stationed in Italy, where he admired Mussolini's leadership and embraced fascist ideas. When Perón rose to power in Argentina, he had grand ambitions. He saw his country as a future global power and believed that bringing in skilled Nazis, scientists, engineers, and military strategists could help him achieve that dream. Under Perón's leadership, Argentina became a welcoming refuge for Nazis. His government provided fake passports, safe houses, and secret escape routes. These covert pathways, later called ratlines, became the lifeline for war criminals desperate to evade justice. The term ratlines might sound like something out of a spy novel, but these routes were real and alarmingly effective. They operated like underground highways, moving fugitives from Germany and Austria to distant shores. Many of these routes passed through Spain or Italy, where sympathetic officials or corrupt intermediaries provided forged documents. One key player in the ratline network was Bishop Alois Hudal, an Austrian cleric based in Rome. Hudal used his position within the Catholic Church to assist Nazis, providing false papers and shelter in Vatican properties. Hudal justified his actions as aiding persecuted anti-communists, but his efforts shielded some of the most heinous war criminals from justice. Once armed with false identities, Nazi fugitives made their way to Spanish or Italian ports. From there, they boarded ships bound for South America. Argentina, with its promise of protection and anonymity, was the destination of choice. Other countries like Brazil, Chile, and Paraguay also became havens for fleeing war criminals, but Argentina offered the most organized assistance. Escape wasn't just about survival, it was about leverage. By 1943, as the war turned against Germany, high-ranking Nazis began transferring stolen wealth to foreign banks. Gold, artwork, and other valuables looted from victims of the Nazi regime were smuggled out of Europe, ensuring that these criminals had the resources to fund their escapes. Argentina, eager to boost its economy, welcomed this influx of wealth. But wealth wasn't the only attraction. Many of these fugitives brought skills and knowledge that Perón believed could strengthen Argentina. Scientists, engineers, and military experts, men who had been instrumental in the Nazi war machine, found new roles in Argentine industry and government. Perón even believed that their expertise could prepare Argentina for a potential Third World War, which he anticipated would pit the United States and the Soviet Union against each other. Among the most notorious fugitives was Adolf Eichmann, the architect of the Holocaust. Eichmann escaped to Argentina under a false identity, living as a factory foreman for years. His quiet life came to an end in 1960 when Israeli Mossad agents captured him in a daring operation. Eichmann's trial in Israel was a global spectacle, exposing the horrors of the Holocaust to a new generation. Josef Mengele, the Angel of Death, also fled to Argentina. Mengele's experiments on Auschwitz prisoners remain some of the most horrific crimes of World War II. Despite being one of the world's most wanted men, Mengele eluded capture for decades, moving between Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil. He ultimately died in 1979, drowning in a swimming accident, never having faced justice. Klaus Barbie, the Butcher of Lion, found refuge in Bolivia, where he lived openly for years. Barbie even worked as a consultant for the Bolivian government, leveraging his brutal expertise in counterinsurgency tactics. It wasn't until the 1980s that he was extradited to France and sentenced to life imprisonment. These men were just a few of the hundreds who escaped through ratlines, aided by wealth, false identities, and a network of sympathizers. While many Nazis evaded justice, others weren't so lucky. The Nuremberg trials became the symbol of post-war accountability, bringing leaders like Hermann Göring and Rudolf Hess to justice. But the trials also showed the gaps in the Allied response. Many lower-ranking officials, scientists, and bureaucrats slipped away, blending into civilian life or escaping through ratlines. Organizations like the Simon Wiesenthal Center emerged to track down war criminals, driven by the belief that justice delayed was still justice deserved. Simon Wiesenthal himself dedicated his life to hunting Nazis, using meticulous research and public pressure to bring fugitives to trial. Despite these efforts, the hunt was far from perfect. The Cold War shifted priorities, with nations like the United States and the Soviet Union recruiting former Nazis for their scientific and military programs. Programs like Operation Paperclip in the US secretly brought Nazi scientists to work on projects like the space race, prioritizing technological advantage over moral accountability. Argentina's role in harboring Nazis was no secret. By the 1950s, international pressure mounted, as evidence of Perón's complicity became undeniable. Yet Perón defended his actions, framing them as a pragmatic choice for Argentina's future. The wealth and expertise these fugitives brought were seen as assets, even if their pasts were steeped in atrocity. Even after Perón's presidency ended, Argentina remained a safe haven for Nazis. Some fugitives lived openly, while others maintained low profiles. The Argentine government, eager to avoid international scrutiny, rarely extradited these individuals, allowing many to die peacefully in their adopted homeland. The story of Nazi escapes raises difficult questions about justice and morality. How could so many war criminals evade capture? Why did nations and institutions, including those that condemned the Nazis, help them disappear? And what does this say about the compromises made in the name of progress, politics, or pragmatism? For many, the answers are unsatisfying. The pursuit of justice was uneven, influenced by geopolitics, economic interests, and the limits of post-war infrastructure. While the capture of figures like Eichmann offered moments of accountability, the reality is that most Nazis who escaped never faced justice. The Nazis may have lost the war, but their escape routes reveal a darker side of history, one where wealth, power, and politics often outweighed accountability. Their stories remind us of the complexities of justice in the aftermath of conflict and the moral dilemmas that nations face when balancing principles with self-interest. What do you think? Could the world have done more to bring these criminals to justice? Or were the compromises of the Cold War inevitable? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this story fascinating, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into history.